Well, the 2021-22 NHL season is in the books. Colorado Avalanche win the Stanley Cup. We'll talk about how they got there, maybe some lessons the Preds can learn. Plus, now that the season has come and gone, we're going to take a look back at the top moments in a special Monday plus minus recapping the NHL season. Coming up today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. Every single day, I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at ontheforecheck.com.
Well, it is a good day to be a Colorado Avalanche fan. They have the Stanley Cup. As they probably should, based on how this series played out. We'll talk about the Avalanche run in just a second. First, though, want to mention off the bat, today's show brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. Yeah, good day for the Colorado Avalanche fans. First, they get to watch the premiere of the E60 Unrivaled.
Oh my gosh.
Red Wings Avalanche Brawl, which I know you're a newer hockey fan. You didn't get to experience kind of the full scope of that. So what do you think of that kind of era of hockey?
I have to tell you, Nick and I ended up texting over this because I literally was like traumatized, mortified, fascinated. My husband and I had it on and we were trying to get some house projects done. And we were like, yeah, no, got to sit down and watch this. That was insane. I mean, and again, newer hockey fans. So I missed this the first time around. And, you hear about rivalries like this. I had no idea. If it wasn't real, it would be a movie, just from start to finish, the style of hockey, the attitudes of the players. It took me hours after that ended to sort of like come back and function in real life again, because that was absolute insanity. Fascinating, horrible insanity.
That was basically my first foray into hockey, because I think I was I just turned 7 or 8.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And my parents, obviously from Detroit, obviously there's Steve Yzerman right there. That was kind of my intro to hockey, was like the Red Wings back-to-back cup wins. And I think my grandma, I still remember March 26th, like live. Like, I think my grandma was there at the house and we were just like sitting around, like watching this game. And we were like, what is happening? I remember my mom like running to the phone to call my uncle and being like, oh my God, are you watching this? And I like to thank her for being like the irresponsible parent who would let their young child watch just a bunch of grown men just bloody each other up on the ice, because that was like the thing that got me hooked on hockey.
Oh my gosh. I was like traumatized a little bit by it. So way to go for being a resilient 7-year-old, because when you see two goalies and meet in the middle and just go after it, and they're having to clean up blood off the ice and everything, that was incredible. Fantastic. If you did not catch this documentary, you must go watch it. Incredible.
Yeah, especially for the Vladimir Konstantinov part.
Yes.
There's probably not a dry eye on either side of that rivalry who watched that. I mean,
yes.
Like touching good stuff. And anybody who experienced that as it happened knows just how incredible it was to see him not only in a documentary, but talking and giving answers. So without hell of a, again, if you haven't seen Unrivaled, you need to check that out. The Avalanche took the L in that fight, but they didn't take the L in the 2022 Stanley Cup playoffs. They didn't take very many L's at all during this postseason. They beat the Tampa Bay Lightning last night in Game 6 to win the Stanley Cup. 16-4 record in the Stanley Cup Finals. They have 4 losses in 2 series. The other 2 series were sweeps. So, yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Colorado.
Yeah. We're happy you could have something on your resume.
Yeah.
Like we said before, Anne, it just seems like, it seems very weird to say this in the scope of professional sports, but it feels like the right team won.
Mm-hmm.
It just really felt like Colorado was the best team this year, the best team in the postseason, and really the best team on paper. And very rare that you kind of have those 3 sort of encapsulating factors combined to a Stanley Cup champion.
Yes. It's so often that when you watch a championship game, whether it's NHL, whether it's NFL, any sort of sports thing, there's always sort of this narrative in the back of your mind, like, well, the best team in the regular season didn't win. And in hockey, you talk about lucky hockey bounces. Hockey is kind of a game of skill and a little bit of witchcraft, I think. But Colorado has been the team all season long. And when they came into the playoffs, obviously first round, you're welcome, swept the Predators. And I think most Predators fans felt like Nashville just was not good enough. And here's what's real. Nashville is just not good enough. When you think about the Nashville Predators team this season and you compare them to the Colorado Avalanche, who just won the Stanley Cup, obviously you're looking at 2 very different teams, different rosters. But Colorado was just on a mission. Had they lost this year, I think it would have been shocking to me had they lost, because it really would have been. Watching them go into the playoffs, they were so focused and their roster was so good. And I really would have been surprised, even though they were playing Tampa Bay.
It's up, but the thing I always say about that, and why I kind of said what I said a second ago about, it being rare that, the team that's best on paper, best in the regular season, and best in the playoffs doesn't always win the cup, just because playoffs are so hit and miss in terms of matches. We talk about it, like a lot of times, like the best team in the regular season, they may rack up, they may have the paper, everybody's picking them for this year, and they may get bounced in the second round just because they run into a team that, wasn't better than them over the entire course of the regular season, but had like the goaltending, or had, the 4 defenders clicking on all seasons. The playoffs, just because it's basically 2 months in the end of the season, it's just such a crapshoot,
Yeah.
Who wins the Stanley Cup isn't necessarily always the team that was the best during the year. It was the team who just happens to have everything going for them at the right time. Right. And Colorado, I think, been the exception, because they were the best team during the regular season, even though they missed out on the President's Trophy, obviously. But I still think, you're watching, the way you watched them, you had to argue, is like, look, this is the cream of the crop this year. And then watch them dominate in the postseason. I mean, they took off the team that we thought for the last 3 years had been the best team in the NHL, the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think to me, that is where the story of the Avalanche kind of has the climax, was against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Because I think you could, they dominated us, the Predators, but hey, we're the Predators. We limped the postseason. They beat the St. Louis Blues in 6, which, hey, let's go back and give some credit to the St. Louis Blues, because that was a really good series. They beat them in 6, but everybody's like, oh yeah, nobody was picking St. Louis to win the cup. They beat the Edmonton Oilers, like dominated them. But Mike Smith, like what can you do? Like, I could score 8 on Mike Smith. So you kind of have these built-in excuses for all of these playoff series, and then you get to the Stanley Cup where everybody was like, yeah, there's no place for Colorado to hide now. Colorado went out and absolutely dominated the team that we all agreed had been like the foundational cornerstone of the NHL for the past 3 years. And I think that's really where you highlight just how good the Avalanche were. Like, yeah, they dominated these teams, and there are some excuses you could build in for, why that happened. But when it was time for, nowhere to hide,
right,
they went out and laid all their cards on the table, and they dominated in 5 of the 6 games, the two-time defending Stanley Cup champs. And I think that's really brings home the point of how good this team was this year.
Yes. And, they really were not super challenged in the playoffs, but I feel like we saw glimpses of just how well constructed this roster was all season long. And I agree with you. Timing really is everything in the NHL. And so many seasons you see teams that were kind of up and down. You think back to the Nashville Predators team that went to the Stanley Cup final, very up and down, but they peaked at the right time when it came time for the playoffs. I don't necessarily think that's the trajectory for Colorado. I think they just were so good all the time. They were just a slow burn to the finals. And they did run into these narratives about how they were going to lose to Tampa Bay, but they paid not a lick of attention, my friends, and they're drinking out of the Stanley Cup, which is disgusting.
Oh, come on. That's got to be like, you got to put the germophobia aside for a little bit.
No.
Yeah.
No.
My favorite part about that, Anne, is, you'll have see the picture of a player letting his horse eat oats out of the Stanley Cup. And then 2 days later, small children are eating ice cream. And then 3 days later, it's at a strip club somewhere.
There are not enough Lysol wipes, my friends.
Yeah.
Stop it.
How do you think Nathan MacKinnon celebrated the Stanley Cup? Do you think he had one bite of a brownie?
I hope so, but I am willing to say he did not. But wouldn't you, if you ate like Nathan MacKinnon, what would be your celebratory carb?
Do you think he's went to the locker room and it's your glass of milk is ready, sir?
Yes.
And it's no, tonight we're having chocolate milk.
Because we're celebrating. Yeah, it's a party now, Nathan MacKinnon.
We can be a little naughty. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, he probably had a Twizzler.
Yeah, like 3/4 of a Starburst.
Yes.
And got to the little end part of the pink one. I was you know what? I can save the rest of this for later if I want. It's sitting in his fridge, and he's I'll finish this the next time we win a cup.
That's right. That's right.
Well, the season's in the books, and that means we have a lot to look back on. And since it's Monday, we haven't done a plus minus in a while. We are going to do a special Monday plus minus of the entire 2021-22 NHL season with some of our favorite moments and some things we absolutely hated. First, I want to mention today's show brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news from Major League Baseball to boxing, UFC, golf, pretty much any sport you want to find, WNBA, NBA, MLS, anything like that. BetOnline has you covered. BetOnline is also your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Plenty of different prop bets, always different kinds of lines and odds. So be sure you're checking every day to see what is available. Yeah, some of it's easy money. Trust me, we've been on there before. Some of it's give me money, so you're going to be wanting to make sure you check BetOnline to see what you can come up with. So head to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline.net, where the game starts. And the 2021-22 NHL season now over and done with.
Yes.
We're back our Monday plus minus. We haven't done this since the Predators exited the playoffs, but in case you're newer to the show, how this works is we take things that we liked, things we to praise and we give them pluses. We take things we didn't like and we gave them minuses. So today we figured we'd do that for the NHL season as a whole.
Yes.
There's going to be some Preds stuff, some NHL stuff, a nice little mixed bag. So, Anne, would you like to lead us off?
Yes, I'm going to lead us off, of course, on a plus. And my plus for the season is the addition of the Seattle Kraken. Now, I get it. The Seattle Kraken did not have a rousingly impressive season on the ice, although they beat the Predators twice.
We'll always remember the Kraken's first win.
Won't we, though?
Yeah.
Yes. It will sit like a little rock in our craw. But yes. But I think so much about the Seattle Kraken, the expansion was so well executed. Seattle has hit it out of the park on everything except maybe on ice product. But I think the expansion draft was very fun, although disappointed. I will say I'm very disappointed that so many picks were leaked ahead of time.
Yeah.
That was a downer. That was a downer.
It was so creative how they did that too, where that like the celebrities, like,
yes,
we're always going to have Marshawn Lynch picking Callie Yarncroke.
Boy Callie.
Boy Callie. That's always Callie. Like something we're gonna have her hang, like the fish market toss with the name on the bottom of it. It's just a shame that the majority of those expansion draft picks were terrible.
Yes.
That's something I think Ron Francis kind of regrets.
Yeah, it did not pan out well on ice, but I feel like they really laid the groundwork for an enthusiastic fan base. First of all, uniforms hit it out of the park. Best uniforms in the NHL, hands down, are the Seattle Kraken. Best logo, Seattle Kraken. And I feel like they're going to make some moves to make this team more competitive. They have Matty Beniers so it'll be interesting to see what he does. They did not come out of the gate like Vegas, but I really feel like the Seattle Kraken are a fun addition to the NHL. So I have loved watching that unfold, except for the Predators giving them their first franchise win. That was painful.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is that is going to be a city that people are going to want to visit as well. That people are going to want to see a game in Seattle. So I think there's plenty of good, exciting things for the Kraken ahead. They just have a lot of work to do behind the scenes with building that team.
Yes,
certainly a different boat than the Vegas Golden Knights. That's for sure. Continuing our theme from the Stanley Cup Finals, and I am going to give a plus to Joe Sakic, Colorado Avalanche, whose day started with watching his team get beat into a bloody pulp during the unrivaled E60. But it ends with him lifting the Stanley Cup. And I want to give a shout out to Joe Sakic because pretty much every move he has made to put this team together has been pure. Now I know we talk about like let's look at the Avs, and if we need to be like the Avs, we need to tank. You know, we need to be able to draft players like Nathan McKinnon and Gabe Landeskog and Cale Makar and all that. But let's talk about the rest of the team because every move he's built to kind of complement this core has paid off tenfold. Andre Burakovsky, sort of a trade with Washington. You talk about getting Val Nichushkin, who had a career year. There's a lot of talk in Dallas that he was kind of a bust in Dallas just because he didn't really quite develop. You can talk about the Nazem Kadri trade with Toronto. You can talk about, getting Devon Toews from the New York Islanders and what has proven to be one of the more underrated trades of recent NHL memory. That was kind of thought out to be a trade at the time. It wound up being, what could be one of the best deals of all time. And you look at the roster, it's like, he went out and got Jack Johnson, who was, hated both by the eye test people and the hockey analytics community. Everybody was like, dear God, please don't touch Jack Johnson. And they wound up winning a cup with him. And it's just, you go through the roster and it's just full of these guys who are kind of like small, not necessarily headline grabbing news, except for maybe Kadri. And they paid off and they had career years. And it's just like, what is going on in that Colorado front office that they have been able to hit on pretty much every major move they made, including Sam Gerard.
Yes. Oh, Sam.
Unfortunately, he was hurt and missed the entire postseason, but he was a big part of that team during the regular season, one of their top 4 defensemen. And it's a shame he didn't get to showcase his stuff in the playoffs, because I feel like a lot more people would be talking about Sammy Gerard also.
Yes. Yeah, this roster was so well constructed. I think it's going to be one of those things that people are going to look back on and really break down how well it was put together from top to bottom. And that is one of the things that I am in awe of when it comes to Colorado, is their roster was just stacked with talent. And like you said, they were able to pull from places where these players really were not insanely successful necessarily. It was so brilliantly constructed. So I would 100% agree. That's a fat plus.
So let's get negative, and
Okay.
let's go. Let's go a minus, Anne.
Let's go a minus. Okay, well, this I'm gonna share this delicately, but the biggest minus for me in the NHL this season, and perhaps for a long, long time, is the NHL's handling of the Kyle Beach situation. And I'm not going to go into any sort of details on this, but I really feel like the NHL struggled to handle this situation well. I want to give a huge plus to Kyle Beach, because I feel like he handled this situation with such dignity and courage. But I also am like, you know what, NHL, stop expecting the victim to walk it out well if you won't. So for me, for a number of reasons, I feel like the biggest minus for this past season has been the way the NHL handled this. Joel Quenneville lost his coaching position. He resigned from Florida Panthers because he was in the room when some decisions were made, but he was able to coach his last game. I feel like Gary Bettman really, with Stan Bowman, he has said, well, we'll have a conversation if he wants back in the league. And I think, Gary Bettman, buddy, you might not be the guy that should have that conversation. So that has been really difficult. And it's difficult when you love the NHL and you want to invite people into the NHL, and yet you're going to have to explain situations like this. So for me, that is the biggest minus, was the handling of that whole situation.
Yeah, and you hope it's going to be a watershed moment, but then you look at things like happening now and the Hockey Canada investigation.
Yes.
It's just kind of it's very different, but then you also look at the Evander Kane stuff, and there's kind of this weird thing about, and I think the best way to put it is, the player is fine as long as he helps you reach the end goal. Like, if he helps you win, you can excuse pretty much anything else. And that's kind of been the underlying theme of any of these stories, is this is kind of excuse, look over, because you really need the service as a player. And, hopefully that changes soon. But yeah.
That was my minus. How about you? What was your big minus for this season?
There's a couple of them. The first one I have is the NHL Coaching Carousel.
Oh,
why do the same coaches keep getting jobs pretty much everywhere?
Preach.
I mean, you look at the Stars, fire Rick Bowness, or he steps aside. They bring in Pete DeBoer, who was fired from the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas Golden Knights replaced him with Bruce Cassidy, that was fired from the Boston Bruins. Philadelphia Flyers brought in John Tortorella.
Oh my gosh.
The Florida Panthers, who won the President's Trophy.
Yeah.
Of Andrew Brunette, who took them through some crazy BS this year.
Yes.
With Paul Maurice, who got fired from the Jets. And it's just like, do you not see, like, there's benefit in trying something else, like seeing who else is out there? These guys have a shelf life for a reason, you know?
Yes.
And I get it. Like, I get it. Like, if you were fired from your job, you wouldn't want to be like, well, it sucks, but you're out forever now because it didn't work out. Like, you would want to be like, okay, I want a chance somewhere else. Maybe have, a different change of scenery to really show what I can do. I get that. But in the NHL, there are so many quality candidates that are ready for that next step that, just don't get it because we're hiring like the same top level of coaches every single year. Those coaches coach for 5 or 6 years, have, maybe some success right off the bat, but then have 1-2 bad seasons and then on again. Look at what Colorado did with Gerard Bednar. He was an AHL coach. Look at John Cooper for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He was their minor league coach. So, there's benefit in trying to find, maybe that next person, that person who is ready to go, who maybe can come into a situation with fresh ideas. And, if you have a young coach, they can kind of learn from the players, just like they're teaching the players, have it be more of a two-way relationship, as opposed to an older guy like Don Tortorella or Pete DeBoer. It's like, no, this is what we're doing. And if you don't like it, then you're not a part of this team. Like,
yep,
you're going to get benched. You're going to lose ice time, blah, 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 all this.
It's insane to me. I just want to go to a GM meeting and say, do the work. Do some work. Go out there. You cannot tell me. And I get that, they have these amazing, I look at John Tortorella and I'm like, yeah, he's got this long coaching resume. You cannot tell me that you can't invest some time and energy in going out there and finding somebody to step in there. I agree with you 100%. It is maddening to me that the same people are getting opportunities. Now, I will say, caveat to that, don't y'all look at Carl Taylor because he is ours.
Yes.
And we will bring him. He will be ours. So check yourself. But
well, maybe. I don't know. Our current coach signed a new deal, so.
Right. But I'm saying eventually Carl Taylor's ours. But do the work. Do the work. I am so frustrated by this. Do the work. Find the talent. It is out there. And if you think it isn't, then you're not investing in it. It's on the league. So you probably don't. I'm done. I won't keep going because this will turn into a whole don't at me.
How about a plus, Anne? Another plus for this season.
Yeah, let's go back on the plus bandwagon. And I am going to just, since I'm in the mood already after that last topic, I'm going to just jump into the petty AF plus for me. And I have a more constructive plus, but we're going to go petty right now. Corey Perry lost the Stanley Cup 3 years in a row. And look, I'm sure that Corey Perry is a lovely person. I'm not sure, but I can imagine a scenario where perhaps Corey Perry is a great person off of the ice. But ever since the Winter Classic, when he had just the most ridiculous dirty hit on Ryan Ellis that took Ryan Ellis out for a long time, Corey Perry has been like enemy number one for me. And to see him lose, this is so bad. I'm a bad person, but to see him lose the Stanley Cup 3 years in a row, the amount of joy I felt, just immeasurable joy. Corey Perry lost the Stanley Cup 3rd year in a row, friends.
Well, and as I mentioned last night, he's the first person in NHL history to lose the Stanley Cup 3 straight years with 3 different teams.
Yes!
Like, he with the Dallas Stars, lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Then he went up to Montreal, lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning. So he finally says, screw it. I'm going to win the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm going to give him the cup. And then he loses with the Lightning to the Colorado Avalanche.
Isn't it the most amazing thing?
What a storybook finish. Like, what a storybook finish for Corey Perry.
Yeah. And they were talking last night on the broadcast about, oh gosh, what this must feel like for him. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
So bad. But there's plenty more positive things that we should probably hit upon. So let's focus on some positives here.
Well, mine for me across the NHL is the rise of the next generation.
Yes.
Great players. Cale Makar, we just saw what he did this year. He's a future star. You look across the league, Trevor Zegras, another big year, like a big year for the rookie. You have Moritz Seider, who won the Calder, and Lucas Raymond in Detroit, who each were critical in their parts of the year. You look at Karl Kaprizov in Minnesota and Igor Shesterkin, both getting very, very a high amount of Hart trophies. And it just goes to show you, like, this is the next generation stepping up. Because I think a lot of people were kind of concerned a little bit. It's like, hey, what happens when Crosby and Ovechkin kind of call it a career? Like, where's like the next level of big marketable stars? And it's here. And we haven't even talked about, Austin Matthews, who just won the Hart Trophy, who's kind of becoming the next, that pop culture crossover, because every picture he posts is somehow with Justin Bieber. But, there's also behind him so many good stars that don't get talked about enough. And not only are they great players, but they're fun to watch. They have a personality, and I kind of equate it to what's going on in the NBA right now with players like, Ja Morant, where it's just like, they're not only really good players, but, they're young, they have personality, and you would want to pay to go see them, and you would want to go cheer for them. You enjoy watching them. Yes. And that to me is what's happening in the NHL right now with the rise of all of these great young generation of players.
Yes. That's funny. I had the exact same plus for the exact same reasons, because I think there is this romantic, just this romanticized storyline about players, like you said, like Ovechkin and like Crosby, and, once in a generation, we'll never have talent like that again. But I think just you wait. Like, there are these young guys. I do feel like you forgot to say Rem Pitlick, but there are.
Yeah.
But there is this amazing crop of rookies and younger talent that are really showing not only amazing on-ice talent, but I agree with you. It's time for the NHL to highlight their personalities. And I love what I'm seeing. Like we talked about the Mojo show that Moritz Seider does. Hilarious, y'all. If you have not watched this, it is fantastic. So I love the way these young players are coming up, not just on ice, but I'm loving their off ice personality coming through too. So it's been great to see. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Speaking like the Red Wings Avalanche rivalry, imagine in a few years if we get a Mo Seider versus Cale Makar matchup in a future Stanley Cup final.
Yes. I mean, now, it cannot be as bloody as the last one, because I still am not over that whole documentary.
I feel like if that happened today, that would be painted in a very different light.
I would hope so.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of pearl clutching.
Yes.
How about another minus, Anne?
Yeah. So my other minus is the Arizona Coyotes and the city of Glendale. This has been like sands through the hourglass. So are the days of the Arizona Coyotes. This has been a tremendous amount of drama. In August, Glendale said they're not going to renew the lease agreement, the operating agreement with the Coyotes. And then in December, Glendale said, we're going to lock you out. You haven't paid $1 million in back taxes. The Coyotes are like, whoops, somebody forgot to post the check.
That was the best news ever.
I'm like, who hasn't been there? Like, who hasn't forgotten to pay their $1 million of taxes? And then now, Arizona is going to be moving to Arizona State University. But I will say, I think that things are headed in a really good direction. And if you want to keep up on this, you need to follow Robin at Locked On Coyotes, because Robin has done a phenomenal job covering all of the ins and outs of this story. But the Tempe City Council voted in favor of looking into and beginning negotiations to build a new like entertainment arena, ice center for the Coyotes. So there's, positive movement, but it has really been a huge off ice distraction for a team that had enough on ice issues that, bless, they did not need it. It was a lot of drama for Arizona Coyotes this year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see them play at a college arena next year and how that all works out.
Yeah.
How about a minus for the Olympics?
Oh, come on.
The NHL participation in the Olympics. For once again, the men's tournament, which women's tournament was great. Fantastic. Incredible tournament. But the men's tournament for the second year in a row, it was just hard to care. Like, it really was. And it was, I guess, more fun this year that the Team USA and Team Canada both leaned into the youth. Whereas, last time it was just a who's who of, hey, that guy played for half of the season in the NHL. I remember him.
Yes.
But, obviously we understand why the NHL did it, but the fact that they didn't want to do it in the first place, kind of put a negative spin on the entire thing. I don't understand why there is this big push from a lot of people to keep the NHL out of the Olympics. Wouldn't you want your biggest stars out there on the world stage? Wouldn't you want to market your players and have that tournament be just fun as hell to watch?
Yes.
And there's a lot of stuff going on, obviously the NHL is not getting the NBC rub this year. Or, I know a lot of people were concerned about injuries and stuff. And, 2014 didn't have the same magic, but I think there's other reasons for that as well. Look, the NHL needs to find a way to get its players back into the Olympics. That's best for the NHL. That's best for the Olympic Games. And that's best for us, the viewing audience. I think that would make the Olympic hockey tournament, the men's side, must-see viewing once again.
Yes, I agree with that. And the Olympics were, I covered them for Locked On, and it was exciting to see some of the young talent, some of these, players who are likely to be drafted high. But I agree with you. It is such a missed opportunity. You think about, we just got to watch Mikael Granlund play at Worlds. Yeah. That's so fun. I tuned in. Yeah, I tuned in specifically because I knew Granny was playing hockey. What a missed opportunity for the NHL. And I agree with you 100%. I think probably they were looking for any opportunity to say, oh, no, maybe not. Maybe not. So.
Real quick, your favorite plus from the Predators this season?
Oh, my favorite plus from the Predators. So many to choose from. I'm going to have to go with Matt Duchene. For all of the marital strife that man has caused me, the amount of joy that I feel watching him be the Matt Duchene that I have always known he was, people. I have always known that he was for me the greatest plus for the season. Yes, Philip Forsberg also had a phenomenal year, but just for Matt Duchene to be able to do what he did this year, it was just the most beautiful pseudo middle finger to all of the people who couldn't say his name without saying $8 million. $8 million. So for me, the redemption story of Matt Duchene, who I always knew was amazing. Yeah. How about you? What's your Predators plus?
It's got to be the Stadium Series. And I know they lost.
Oh, yes.
I know they lost. But the fact that it was just so much fun. And
it was incredible.
Go back that week. We had the Renegades of Puck tailgate where you and I finally met in person for the first time. So there's something. And it was also the first time I met Sean Smith, our frequent replacement co-host here. It was just kind of like the week's worth of partying, and there's all these events the day of, and just kind of being in Nissan Stadium and seeing, a hockey rink there and kind of like the eye of the NHL. The Tampa fans that were in town were phenomenal.
They were incredible.
Met a lot of them, a lot of fun people, very, respectful. There's a lot of, handshaking, and you guys are great, and blah, 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 blah after the game.
Yep.
It was just a fun event. And sometimes, like, that's what you have to treat games like those as, are just fun events. Yeah, the Preds lost, but being there was still awesome.
Yes.
And so to me, that was the biggest thing. And I think Nashville overall did a very, very good job of hosting it. We had our, special plus minus when the stadium series happened, kind of talking about the, what we would change and whatnot. But overall, they did a very good job of hosting it. Nashville can host a party. We know that. And I would love to see more big NHL events,
yes,
more big sporting events in Nashville. And hey, if there's a newer stadium that's coming downtown, there probably is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to. Everybody loves to come. I mean, you can see it at Predators games. Everybody loves to come to Nashville. So, let's do another big party like that. I thought the stadium series was incredible. I hate that the Predators lost, but for atmosphere, it was magic.
Yeah. Speaking of magic, the Locked On Predators podcast. We're awesome. Yeah, this is our first season together, Anne. So,
I know.
Yeah,
that's a plus.
It is a plus. It is another plus. Why don't we celebrate by telling people where they can find us?
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com, and you can find me on Twitter at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
I'm Nick Morgan. You can find me at ontheforecheck.com. Follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. And while you're there, be sure to follow the podcast at LO_Predators. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment. Helps us get this out to more Preds fans like yourself. That's going to do it for today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back tomorrow with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.